Hello and welcome to this edition of Bayou Time. I'm your host, Keith Weisheit, licensed clinical social worker with Charitable One Home Care. Very glad you are joining us, as I'm very glad to be joining you. And you know, we always like to bring in and get the experts in different fields to tell us about some of the things that are happening and how it impacts and affects what happens with our economy. And one of those things is the volume of things that we can deal with through the port. So we welcome back to the program Chett Chiasson, the Executive Director of the Greater Lafourche Port Commission. Chett, always glad you're joining us.
Thanks for having me again, Keith.
We appreciate it. And you know, I know this is going to be an ongoing discussion. We're probably always going to be talking about what people are focused on with right now with what they're considering an energy crisis. We know it's about energy options, and we want to keep talking about that. Tell us kind of where things stand and how that's impacting you guys at the port.
I think most recently what we've seen is finally we've gotten through different phases of this last lease sale that took place back in November, where it was stopped by a court, then it was put back into effect by a court, then stopped by a court again. And then with this last IRA bill that was passed through Congress, the Inflation Reduction Act, it actually was put back in place. And some of these companies are starting to receive their lease documentation from the federal government now. So that's a good thing for us. It's a good thing for the normal expiration capability. Having these leases now, the oil companies can go out and, you know, explore for oil in those locations and hopefully get some to production. Because look, it's, as we know and we've talked about before, but we always have to reiterate it, and we need the general public to talk to their friends and talk to their congressmen and talk to their state reps and understand that, you know, we need this energy. Petroleum products are in our lives, in our daily lives, and we need it. And we need to continue to produce petroleum products so that we can have all the things that we enjoy on a daily basis. You know, we can't get to even renewables without the use of petroleum products in that process. So we need to understand that, and we need to be realistic about that. And this is a good step toward that. The other thing I will tell you that I think is going to be an issue over the coming years, or next couple of years for sure, and maybe into the next presidential election, is the fact that we have reduced our strategic petroleum reserve by, you know, millions of barrels. And we have to be in a position in the near future to begin to bring those barrels back up in our reserve, because, you know, as we whittle that down, we just put ourselves vulnerable to other nations and vulnerable to the energy that we may need in the future. So we have to, you know, put ourselves in position to be self-sufficient.
And look, being able to get these leases finally approved and to be able to see the value in that. And so thank God there's at least the appreciation of the value in being able to give out these leases and be able to start production, because we know there's a process there, getting the lease, getting everything done to start production. And you make a really good point. There are so many things out of our control. The biggest issue that impacted us this year was a decision by a leader of a country to attack another one, and it dramatically impacted our ability to be able to maintain the reserves that we had for our oil and gas.
That's correct. And the other thing that those leases are important for is now that those leases are being handed out to the oil companies, the operators that have purchased them, that money is now going to flow through the federal treasury, which then, if you remember, through the through the Go Mesa program, we get funds back to the state that service this. So state of Louisiana, Coastal Protection and Restoration Authority is going to get considerable amount of funds off of these leases that are sold. And what happens with that? We use those funds in our state to help rebuild our coast, to build protection and restoration projects. It's critically important for us to continue to see those dollars move so that we can get them back to continue to protect ourselves in the future.
So it kind of closes that back door, if you will, for maintaining all of the way of life that we have right now. We need to see that as a big picture instead of just looking at, if we subcontract this out and go somewhere else, this is on the front end, this may be an option, but look at how it impacts the bigger picture, right?
That's correct. That's correct. And the United States controlling its own destiny when it comes to energy is better for our country, it's better for our people, it's better for our environment.
Yeah, and that's just a really big thing. So, and again, we're not in disagreement with looking at alternative means. We want to find ways to do it. You guys are doing it cleaner and more efficiently than we've ever done it. So and we do it cleaner down here than they do it in other parts of the country, and certainly better than other parts of the world. We're doing our part to clean this process up, and we're willing to look at other alternatives. Let's just not discount what we're needing and what we're doing right now.
That's correct. And those alternatives that we've talked about are an energy addition. Remember, we said that the last time we spoke.
Energy addition.
Energy addition, not energy transition, because, again, we're going to always say that we continue to need the sources of energy that we have, and we can continue to bring on new sources of energy into the future. Look, we're putting ourselves in a position to tap into whatever offshore energy capability there will be in the Gulf of Mexico. I'm actually going next week to a ports and vessels business network for offshore wind event. And they actually asked me to speak about logistics and what we do today for the oil and gas industry, the current energy industry in the Gulf, and what our capabilities are for the future with potential offshore wind and hydrogen and those other things that are going on and are going to.
You know, we were talking a little bit about some of the things that were impacting and affecting our areas. We look at energy additions, but I'm always more interested in some of the projects that you guys have going on. Let's talk a little bit about some of the projects happening down at the port.
Absolutely. So I'll start with one that's not actually a port commission project, but it's a project in the port.
Okay.
Engineers is doing maintenance work. They're doing maintenance dredging in Belle Pass as we speak. They started on Sunday evening, and that'll last for a few weeks. And they're getting some of that siltation that we had from Hurricane Ida. Nothing that caused us any issues in terms of having, draft restrictions or anything like that, but just a little siltation. They're coming and do their job.
Right.
So we're always happy to have them do the things that they're responsible for. And I will tell you, further than that, the Corps of Engineers is going to be coming back on another project in the near future to do some jetty repair, and that's some maintenance from Hurricane Ida that caused a little bit of damage to our jetties in Belle Pass. So they are doing, you get a lot of complaints sometimes about the Corps and how long they take to do things and all that. I want to give them credit for doing their job and doing the things that they're supposed to do, that they're responsible for when it comes to our port here in Port Fourchon. So we thank them for doing it, and it's work that needs to be done.
And look, all the things that they're responsible for and all the places they get pulled and stretched from, and they factor in being able to come and do some general maintenance things in recovery from the storm. And so it's nice for them to even be able to consider that. So probably put some other things on the back burner to get that done.
That's correct. That's correct. And as we move, we have our projects are moving forward. Our recovery projects are moving forward. One of our old Port Commission building, our port complex that we had here that took a considerable amount of damage, basically catastrophic damage to the facility here in Cutoff. That is actually started today, being completely torn down. So we got some movement, got some authority from FEMA to at least move that forward so that we could see some activity and recovery of that facility. Our admin building is being repaired. We have wharf repairs that should start hopefully in the next couple of months. Our public bathroom at the public boat launch is under repair now. So our repair projects are moving. So we're very, very happy about that. So we're recovering well from the damages of Ida. And with that, we also have regular projects that are taking place. We're in the final stages of a bulkhead that's under construction, and we're going to have a sweep dredge coming in, and that's in our Slip C development area. And we should have a new lease on that, a section of that site very soon. So things are progressing at a slow pace, but progressing well on all of our projects. This bulkhead project is going very well. good contractor, and that's moving along. So we're excited about continuing to move the ball forward.
Yeah, and it's really interesting you bring up the home being, the office being torn down over and cut off. Sometimes we get to the point where it can't be salvageable. And so just to be able to move forward, you got to tear it down. So you kind of got to get down to the bare minimum, if you will, of being able to do that. And again, it's difficult, but it's about the process of moving forward. And sometimes the only way to move forward is to be able to do that. And then some of these what seem to be little projects are actually just really important projects. And just getting away and getting those done and taken care of. So an exciting time at the port. It always is. But an exciting time about things moving forward there.
Yes, it is. And we have, we're looking, forward to, our infrastructure projects are moving forward still. As we know, we're in the middle of constructing that airport corridor project, and that's moving along fairly well. And then we're designing a new terminal for the airport. And then as you look at the elevated LA1 project, that's under construction now as we speak as well. That's another 5 years of work that'll be taking place there. We hope it's only 5 years.
Right.
So there's just so much going on in this area. We're happy about the continuation of all of these projects and all of the this funding that's coming into our community for these projects.
Yeah, and that's one of those things, we're talking with you and Archie about, the LA1 project, just getting the approval for it and kind of moving forward. And Ida kind of put everything kind of on hold for us with that. And so now kind of restarting that and looking forward to that's going to be. I love the idea that we know that it's a 5-year project. We want it to stay in 5 or less, right? We don't want to push into that 6th year if we have to. But we know that those are necessary things. LA1's got to be raised. We talk about all the water and the impact that's come from by Lafourche because it's just so close and the road's so low there.
That's correct. And for any, especially on the outside of the levee system, we're so lucky to have the levee systems that we have in Lafourche and Terrebonne. When we taxed ourselves to build those. So
right.
We're putting our money where our mouth is there. But, on the outside of that levee, that currently unelevated LA1 is only at a +2 elevation, right? So any tropical event, any elevated water levels because of, southeast winds strong enough for a long period of time can put water over the top, and then that cuts off access to the port, which has, if the port could operate, but we can't get there because LA1's over top, that causes $500 million impact to national GDP. It's
right.
important.
Absolutely, and we need to be able to move forward with that. And so, it's one of those things we're talking about LA1 and just, a southeast wind or just any storm or a small storm comes up and has an impact in a large way of LA1, affects access. And I think sometimes us on our end, we think, oh my gosh, if there's a storm coming or a possible storm, we got so many people living in trailers. We got so many people living in FEMA trailers or travel trailers and homes. And then when we need to put boards up, listen, us doing that stuff for our house is one thing, but you guys getting ready for a storm is something completely different. Let's talk about a little bit about what that preparation is like and maybe some of those things that you do if and when those storms get closer and or approach the Gulf and kind of how that happens for y'all.
Yeah, so after Hurricane Katrina, the Port Commission put together a pretty good hurricane guide. We call it a guide and not a plan because plans are pretty hard and rigid. A guide, you can kind of manipulate it based on what you're seeing from a particular storm that may be coming your way. Because as we know, not every storm is the same, so you have to be able to kind of move with what things are being, ideas and thoughts are being brought to you from the experts on weather, right? So we have a hurricane guide that really guides our plan and what we do internally for the Port Authority, and then how we communicate that to our customers, all the service-based companies in the port. So it's all about communication. So when a storm is nearing the Gulf or starting to enter the Gulf, and we may be in that cone of uncertainty, that triggers everything for us. Triggers everything for our customers and their customers, which are oil and gas companies and the folks that are offshore. But we have to continue to communicate with them with the best information that we're getting from the weather experts as the timing of the storm, timing of elevated water levels, timing of winds, so that we can do the things necessary, make the proper decision to get people out of harm's way. And that's our number one priority, is the safety and security of all the people that work in the port on a daily basis, as well as monitoring what's going on Grand Isle, because that, LA1, that area is the only access for Grand Isle residents and folks to come in and out, to evacuate or what have you. So we have to work very well together across parish lines. We work very well together with all of our parish governmental entities. We start to have, these conversations, these conference calls with the state governor's office of Homeland Security and the National Weather Service, and then down to our parish government and all the different agency heads, with the hospitals, the schools, the sheriff's office, the parish government, the ports, the levee districts. We all have conversations about what we're going to do, what actions we need to take, and where those actions need to be. So I'm very, very pleased with, I've been around, actually September 12th for me was my 17th year here at the commission. So I've been involved in these things for 17 years, And,
Happy anniversary.
Absolutely, I appreciate that. Been the port director for 13, so I've been around for a while, and I can tell you that the current leadership of Lafourche Parish, as well as Terrebonne Parish, because we all work together. We are a region now.
We have to, right?
Kind of cohesive here. We work very well together, but the residents of Lafourche Parish have a leadership here in this parish that work together. We all talk. We have good conversations. We're real with each other. We're all friends, and we do things for the betterment of our parish and our community. And that's really all we can ask.
Right. And its residents, and being able to have a guide, like you said, and I really like the idea. You're right, plans are rigid, but having a guide that kind of dictates what the plan is going to be, it does two things. It says, one, let's not overreact, but at the same time, let's have a plan in place or a guide in place to when we can initiate a plan to make sure that people are safe. We need to know when it is or isn't safe for helicopters to be in and out of getting people off of rigs. We need to know when it is or isn't safe for boats to be in and out to get people, crew boats off their particular cruise, off of where they need to be, platforms or whatever it may be in the Gulf. And just knowing to get them to the port and get them safe for them to be able to be with their families and, quite frankly, to probably go home and board up. So just a lot of those things that need to take place, but at the same time, not overreacting to when we don't need to do that as well. And that requires exactly what you said, excellent communication. And so as we close out here in the last minute or so, I love the fact that y'all open those channels of communication and keep them open.
Yeah, that's correct. And it's critical that we communicate throughout the entire process, pre-storm, during the storm, and post-storm. And we continue to do that the entire time so that everyone knows what's going on and they know when they're going to be able to come back. And that we know that our number one priority, our number one job is to keep people safe, but immediately when threat is gone, get people back up and running, back in the port so that the oil and gas can get moving.
Yeah, and as we close out, it's just really, really important. And I love the fact that not only do you guys work well together as a group, but y'all are all friends as well. And that makes a huge difference because we're all working for the same goal, like you said, keeping everybody safe, looking out for the integrity of what we need to do for our people and for our area. Chett, we always appreciate your time, your energy, and certainly your expertise. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks for having me again. Thank you.
All right, guys. And that will do it for this particular segment of Bayou Time. Don't go anywhere. A lot more local programming here on HTV.